It's a really interesting topic, the kind of low-tech, no CO2, filterless, nano. I'm not sure. Okay, first of all, apologise for the dogs barking in the background, which they will do. Tommy and Betty, they're in the garden right now. Beautiful day here, 30 degrees Celsius. Let's get a drink. Oh, hello Betty. Hello and welcome to a new video from, it's not the GFS gallery anymore. I used to call it the George Farm Studios gallery, which doesn't make any sense really. If the guy that pointed that out to me, that it didn't make sense about 5 years ago, you know who you are if you're watching. You're right, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to call it the George's Scape Farm. Yeah, because I'm a farmer. My name's George Farmer. And I'm going to be farming aquascapes in my home. So I was going to call it Homescape Farm, but that's not very personal. It is my home, but it's not your home. What do you think? Homescape Farm or George's Scape Farm? What do you think? And the concept is I'm showcasing beautiful aquascapes in my home, doing update videos of them quite religiously, really focusing a lot of attention from working from home. Spent so much energy on it to make it look and feel as beautiful as we believe we deserve, because we've worked so hard to create this environment that we're in. So deeply grateful to be able to bring these videos to you. Because of the nature of the layout, I will be able to film from various different locations and make it look really pretty, aesthetically good value, but also hopefully telling really great stories around not just aquascaping, but connecting aquascaping with other topics such as wellness, mental health, neurodiversity, conservation, deep aquascaping topics, and other related things to do with basically what I'm interested in. And hopefully you are too. I'm not like other YouTube creators in terms of output, creating new aquascapes all of the time. I prefer to keep it more in line with just how I live day to day. That's the kind of concept we're going for a lot of future videos, at least videos that I film from home. There will be many more of those. We'll take the conversation wherever we fancy. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to have this opportunity to talk to you. I spent a lot of my life, early parts of my life, without a voice. Living in an environment, whether that's home or school, where I didn't fit in for whatever reason. You can label things. I didn't fit in at all, and I was forced down a certain path which wasn't for me. It got to the point where I literally had to get blown up for me to realise that I was on the wrong path. And then, thankfully, discovered aquascaping and got obsessed, and fast forward, here we are now, with me rambling on about what an amazing hobby that we share, don't we? Speaking of which, I thought I'd try my hand at the old low-tech, no-filter aquascapes, Nano style. Hence this one here, which was originally scaped when I visited Riverwood Aquatics. Peter and Josh, shout out to those guys who helped. And I have to say, I kind of felt a little bit like I was giving in to the algorithm. You know, I'm aware of what videos tend to perform better than others. And as someone that tends to focus on high-tech kind of style, you know, with a sort of stronger lighting, CO2 injection, more focused on growing aquarium plants to their potential rather than going the low-tech no CO2 injection. I didn't think I was really kind of staying authentic to myself by creating a low-tech scape, but it's aquascaping, and my passion is aquascaping, and I am a hobbyist as well as it being my job. So I owed it to myself to be led by my curiosity. And I hadn't done low-tech for a while, and I haven't done filterless for a long time. I can't remember doing, I've done a couple, yeah. But never really sustained it and actually kept it for long enough to give you a maybe a more credible kind of opinion on the whole low-tech filterless kind of genre that many YouTubers are going down at the moment. And it makes sense. It's inexpensive, it's accessible, you can get all the materials from your local stores, plant cuttings from other, hobbyists. And of course, the barrier for entry is therefore much lower, and that's a good thing, I think. It's good to get as many people in the hobby as we can. But also we need to balance that with giving them some essential background knowledge and information about how to give the livestock a level of care and basic welfare to ensure that their well-being is catered for. So it's a delicate conversation really, because on the one hand you have many hobbyists having great success with this low-tech filterless hobby, growing beautiful plants, keeping livestock, maybe even breeding some livestock, whether that's shrimp, snails or even small fish. These tend to be the more experienced folk, and this is great. But I think the risk is that the less experienced folk may assume it's easier than it is, and overstock is a classic, not enough plants to deal with the fish load. There's obviously no circulation in a filterless tank, so you really have to be mindful of that oxygen consumption from the livestock, and that includes not just the fish, but you've got the shrimp, snails and bacteria. These consume oxygen as well. This kind of leads into the topic of how the substrate, I guess, and the maturity of a low-tech system is really important to consider. And it's only recently, in the last week or so, that this has stayed algae-free for more than a few days without big water changes and cleaning. So I've left this now for 4 days without a water change, and it's in impeccable condition. And I think I set it up, I can't remember exactly, I'm going to say 5-6 weeks, maybe longer, maybe 8 weeks now. I'll leave a subtitle to tell you how long ago. And it's only recently that it's got to the stable condition where it's biologically mature enough for it. There's obviously the right bacterias and the right balances to keep the algae away, enough plant growth to absorb the nutrients that would otherwise feed the algae, enough plant growth to deal with all the massive amounts of light it's getting now in here. And interestingly, I've only moved it here a few days ago, and that's when things magically started not to get algae. So maybe counterintuitively perhaps, maybe the extra light has enabled the faster, more rampant plant growth that's then outcompeted the algae for nutrients and light resources, basically, so the algae doesn't stand a chance. It's a really interesting topic, the kind of low-tech, no CO2, filterless, nano. I'm not sure, it's one of those nuanced topics where there's no definitive right or wrong. It's not, you can't say you should never do it, and you can't say absolutely everyone should do it. It's one of those things where I would suggest the hobbyist needs to do a little bit of research, hopefully find a mentor. I think this is really important in today's day and age with the prolific nature of social media and many people having access to so much information so readily at their fingertips without the actual necessarily having the physical experience. And there is a risk, I would say, of beginners being led maybe by folk that aren't so experienced. Well-meaning, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of well-meaning folk out there, But just because you're well-meaning, it doesn't mean that you give the right advice or the appropriate advice, I should say. So I would always suggest finding a mentor if you can, if you're a beginner, or buy a good book, listen to a good podcast, or find a form of media that suits your learning style. Some people like to read, some people like to listen, some people like to see, other people like to do, all in different balances as well. I'm very much a doer and a listener and a viewer, not much of a writer, even though ironically I've written a book which is doing very well, and I appreciate everyone that's bought it. Very grateful. Speaking of books, Toy Streetman's new one's coming out fairly soon, hopefully maybe, I'd like to say Christmas, but it looks like early 24 now. A link in the description for that. Super exciting. So that's the first video from here, and I will be giving more videos, hopefully 2 videos a week or so, from George's scape farm, or George's home, or the homescape farm. George's Scape Farm, GSF, George's Scape Farm. Yeah, I think that sounds okay. We'll see. Let me know what you think in the comments. Cheerio. Perfect timing, mate. What time do you want tea, do you reckon?